I'm very excited to have with me now one of the keynote speakers from the LBMA. He's also the executive director of the Austrian Central Bank. Peter Mooslechner joins us on Kitco News today. Peter, nice to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, I want to talk to you about the role of gold in a central bank. Is it losing appeal in the role it plays in a central bank, or is it gaining ground? How do you see gold?
I think it differs a lot. For a small central bank as we are, and we have joined the euro system some time ago, the role of gold has significantly changed. It was of big importance during the period of the Brenton Woods system, where it played a very active role also in the management of our overall reserve. But having become now part of a much greater monetary and economic area, so it has transformed into something like the basic part of reserves to be held for as a liquidity buffer or for security reasons, but not so much an active part of management of gold reserves anymore.
Okay, so you're saying it depends on the size of the central bank, but I guess I should ask then, well, what role do you feel it should be playing?
I think for small countries, it's more or less this buffer role in the end. It's quite different, I think, for central banks in Asia, for example, where they're increasing their reserves a lot, and they are much more active in using also the reserves in trading in the market, in intervening into the market. So it differs quite a lot from the starting point and the situation you're in.
Does the Austrian Central Bank have plans to increase its gold reserves? Last estimates were 43.9%.
We don't think so that we have to increase, because we are now part of the much bigger intervening power of the euro system and the ECB. But what we have decided in the last strategic documents is to keep the share of gold and the amount of gold constant for the time being.
Well, you want to repatriate 3.5 billion pounds of the gold, which is currently in the UK, moving it back to Austria over the course of 5 years. Why did you decide on this move?
This goes back to a request by our General Court of Auditors. They thought that the concentration of our gold holdings at the Bank of England is a little bit too high, and they wanted us to reduce concentration risk there. Frankly speaking, we didn't see much of a concentration risk, because Bank of England is the best place to be. But we decided to go a little bit more in the direction of diversification. So we will bring a little bit back to Austria. In fact, in the end, 50% of our gold holdings should be kept in Austria, and we will also stock up our holdings in Switzerland from the original part, which is held by the Bank of England in London.
It seems that Germany, started the movement when they asked for the Goldbach that's held in New York. Do you think that had anything to do with it? Because we saw so many other countries follow suit after Germany's announcement.
Perhaps this could be labeled also a sort of economic nationalism, which has risen politically in, I think, a lot of countries. But also this previously discussed change in the role of gold has contributed, I think, to this new orientation of our strategy.
Let's talk about Europe for a second. Recently, the National Bank of Austria chief noted that inflation is still too low in the region, and additional instruments are necessary by the ECB to prompt the region's economy. How do you feel about the state of Europe?
I think the situation in Europe has improved. It's on track compared to our forecast we made in June. So the evaluation that took place in September was quite on the positive side. Obviously, some things have happened since September. Also, the move in the US not to raise rate had a certain impact. But I personally think that we are still on track. Of course, inflation targets are not reached at the moment, but it was always the case that we expected this to happen in the course of 2016 or 2017 only.
If we see continued easing in Europe, however, what impact do you feel that would have on gold?
Depends. If uncertainty increases in parallel, for whatever reason, for example, reasons which are situated in Asia, Chinese situation, then perhaps the gold might become more attractive even in Europe. On the other hand, if Europe, as it's the view from the US, for example, at the moment, if Europe really can improve its economic situation as planned in our forecasts, then this might not have a big impact on the situation of the gold market.
Peter, thank you so much for your thoughts today.
My pleasure.
And thank you for watching our coverage here from the LBMA in Vienna, our chat with the Executive Director of the Austrian Central Bank. Thank you so much for watching. We'll have more videos for you throughout the week.